rain's killing my day. So not killing my day, but stopping me from doing what I want to get done. I got a few stumps cut down in the yard where a friend of mine dropped a whole pile of trees for me a few months ago. Got the transom painted on the boat before it started raining. Practiced my bow. Cleaned up the shop. Now I got a little bit of free time, so I'm going to get some more out. And then I'm going to jump my truck and I'm going to burn up the highway towards where I'm going to put the Zodiac in the river, and I'm going to go check that river out for the put-in, which I haven't really done yet. Let me tell me just some more of these current emails that came in recently. That's the theme of the day today, so I might as well keep it going. Mark this is red. This is titled Something in the Woods. These were taken on May 27th in Fayette County, West Virginia, on coal mining property near Montgomery, by a security guard that was in the guard shack. The person stated this figure wasn't there previously, and after the other photo was taken, it disappeared. The person didn't notice the figure while taking the picture. That's kind of odd, isn't it? The person didn't notice the figure while taking the picture. What are you taking a picture of there? So this is a Facebook photograph. Alright, well, I'll post it up. What the hell, I don't normally do. And again, you guys, if you ever manage to take a photo of something you find alarming and you feel is worthy of sharing with the world, go to where the figure was and get somebody to stand there and take a picture of where the person took the picture, okay? We've said it a gazillion times. It makes a world of a difference if you are compelled to share a photograph, all right? Now, what's this one? A huge answer hidden in plain sight. Hello, Stephen, everyone. I discovered a huge answer about the hairy bastards and decided to share with you, and through you, to the entire group of truth seekers. I've listed over and over again to people debating about what the Sabe are and where they come from, and it was following one of these debates that I stumbled, quite accidentally, upon the answer. I happened to be thumbing through a book of artwork found in the Vatican. In particular, I was looking at the works of Michelangelo when I discovered it. There in plain sight were Sabe depicted in this painting. In the Sistine Chapel, there is a painting done by Michelangelo called The Last Judgment. And in this painting, the Sabe are actually depicted, located dead center at the bottom of the painting. The painting depicts the different tribes of man, of which the Sabe appear to be part of, though personally I see them more as cousins to modern man, as they choose to remain in the wild. This is easily verified by anyone who chooses to see simply by looking at the painting, then zooming in on the section dead center at the bottom of it. Depicted are two hair-covered beings in a cave with a stretched hide in the cave with them. Alright. I've attempted to attach the photo to this email for your viewing. Hopefully this helps someone with an answer to the question. Sincerely, Philip Fetterman. Feel free to use my name, as the naysayers don't bother nor affect what I know to be the truth in any way. Okay, Philip, thanks for that, man. That's an interesting find. Somebody else is going to be interested in having a look at that for sure. Having a book, artwork from the Vatican. Michelangelo discovered it. I was trying to look for the name of the painting. The Last Judgment, all right? So it's Michelangelo painting, The Last Judgment. For anybody curious, all you sleuths out there that want to start digging. All right, here's another one. 40 years have passed since my first contact. Here we go. Hi, Steve. I've written before about the hunting lessons my great-grandfather and First Nations ranch hand taught me when I was 10. The lesson about never shooting an animal that walked like a man. I shared an experience of seeing one of these creatures watching me nap under a willow tree on the bluffs of the Missouri River Basin. I wrote about an emotional / psychic connection we shared. These beings and I, the ability these demons have to speak directly to the mind and of having experienced their presence across the country, even here in Florida while fishing in the 10,000 Islands. The connection that was made when I was 10 has always existed. I don't hunt anymore, nor do I fish much either. It's been a lot of years. I'm writing again because I've been hearing you read stories from others that have dreams or have never been the same since their first contact. Hearing that, I might not be the only one to suffer dreams/nightmares with these creatures. Bring some peace. Not dreams about these demons, Steve. The dreams of them are shared with them. There is no explanation, and like my last letter, after rereading it, the level of crazy for someone on the outside looking in must be off the charts, so I'll cut this letter short too. A few points first, if you'll permit. These damn things aren't here to peacefully coexist. They aren't here as a part of our native ecosystem. They come and go. How or where to, we'll never know. They have been visiting here since human evolved at a minimum. It's a small world we share, and a small solar system in a small corner of our galaxy in an equally small universe. Don't think our universe is the only one either. Think of this. If the great creator merely spoke ours into existence and being, imagine how great and mighty those things that he worked by hand. Truly crazy and mind-blowing to consider next time we're sitting by the fire looking up at the stars. Best wishes. Please keep my name and my email anonymous. Okay, I don't know why you want to keep your name anonymous. You're coming up with some pretty strong dictations there, right? But there you go. You've been heard, my man. I don't know about the not sharing the name part. I mean, you're gonna trigger a lot of people and want to debate you on that one, possibly including me too. But everybody has their own views. Everybody gets to speak. Everybody gets to be heard. Take from it what you will or leave it, right? You don't have to fight with anybody here. Take with it what you will or leave it. Do I think humans evolved myself? Nope, not me. So there was how one debate could get kicked off right there. Now, what else do we got? I hope this helps others like Edgar. Dear Steve, I watched your video today where Brian, the indigenous man, gives some answers to Brittany, the woman who was adopted by a group of Sabbath. It really resonated with me. It really helped me in many ways. I know I sound like one of those crackpots when I say that I've had many experiences with many spiritual beings in my life, and to tell you all of my experiences would take way too long. Also, most are not relevant here. I also feel like I am protected or adopted by many of these beings. Anyway, Steve, her shirt being inside out after traveling to their realm got me thinking of Edgar. He described the look on the being's face as pure evil. For some reason, that is how we humans tend to describe true power. For instance, the one and only time my husband raised his hand as if he's going to hit me, he described me as the devil's daughter. What? Our stories of the incident differ in some respects. His story is that my angry face lost all expression. The whited of my eyes turned red, and the blue iris turned red. Then the pupils turned red. The red then spread from my eyes to my face, including my eyebrows. He said my voice was as deep as a man's voice when I said, "Go ahead, it'll be the last thing you do with that hand." He stared at me a moment longer before slowly lowering his hand. He later told his friend that he thought he was married to the devil's daughter. Years later, he and my brother were frustrating me by giving me different directions. They were standing by, blah, 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 blah. Down. Okay. Here's another one. This is titled, "A Little Bit of Confirmation." Steve, I too am a member of the Club of No Return, and now they are real and know they are real and human. Saw it twice, but my story later. Another story later. Make sure you include it, man. Everybody include everything you got in one email, right? Remember the soldier's story where they went on patrol at night? Well, he said they were given live ammo and told that if they encountered the unfriendlies, that headshots only were to be taken. I read a long-lost account of Daniel Boone and son encountering one while hunting. They were walking some distance apart in the woods when he heard his son shoot. He shot again, and he realized the shot was so close that he could have only done it without using any wadding. Excuse me. He heard a yell and took off in the direction of the yell. When he got close, he saw a Sasquatch who had his by the legs, had him by the legs, slam him on the ground. Then he raised him up and slammed him again, and he went limp. Realizing he would probably die the next time he took aim and shot it in the eye, and he went down dead. Upon his son's reviving, which took some time, he questioned him as to where he had shot it. He replied, in the heart area. Further examination showed 2 hits there with no trauma to it at all. Examining further with their knives, they found they have a bony plate in front. All this said, it gives credence to the military man's order to shoot at the head only. I'm sure given ample time and big enough firepower, they can be killed elsewhere besides the head. But it seems that this is the only place for a shot to take them out quickly. I don't condone shooting unless attacked, but I doubt one would have time for it. Keep up the great work, and thanks for giving a safe place to tell our experiences. Jimbo in North Carolina, and I don't care who knows because I know what I saw. Okay, Jimbo, maybe email in what you saw. Share with us what you saw, what happened, all right? And hopefully that'll give you a little bit of more peace and help somebody else who lives near you or was near the area where you had your experience with these bush people, all right? As far as the Daniel Boone thing goes, myself, I'm not familiar with that story at all. I've only heard it referred here in a few emails vaguely, and that's it. That's all I know. Okay? Obviously, I know who Daniel Boone was, and but I'm not familiar with his journals, if he had them, his diaries, if he had them. I'm not familiar with that at all, you guys, all right? So it's interesting, though. It's very interesting, and I've heard a few different people mention the plates in the chest and how it's impenetrable. I've also heard of the heart being up in the armpit area, the only way to shoot in the armpit. I don't know. Not familiar. I'm not overly concerned about how to kill one of these beings myself. It just doesn't, my gut, my instincts, my intuition hasn't driven me to be curious about how to kill one, to be honest. I haven't had that natural curiosity myself. Not yet. I don't think it will either. The dogman things, that's a different story for me. Here's another one, a short one. This is titled A Whistle in My Ear. Hi, Steve. It was early summer. We lived in a semi-rural town south of Albuquerque. Our house was set back off the main stretch of paved road. Being surrounded mostly by farmer fields, there was high strangeness from time to time. This early morning experience happened just at twilight before dawn. We had a above ground pool. Starting summer school, in which I aided students with special needs, having to get up early to get chores done, one of which was treating a pool with chlorine, etc. I was spreading chlorine when an extremely loud, high-pitched whistle next to my right ear occurred. Hair went up on back of next just second to an immersed ringing / pain in the right ear. Grabbing my ear and seeing absolutely nothing, I rebuked in the name of Jesus. It had whistled approximately 3 to 6 seconds. It stopped, then 25 yards in a vacant field, a shorter whistle, not as loud, rang out. I started praying the Lord's Prayer and it stopped. Question, has anyone here experienced this? I know whistles have been heard, but in the ear, close up? Thanks, Steve. Most recipes serve prepare look delicious, so sorry no elk, ram steaks, etc. here in Southern California. LOL. We'll try with a good old beef. Laura. Okay, Laura, thanks for that. And the question you asked, I could answer that. That's an easy one. It's happened tons of times. We've had hunters being in a tree stand getting a big gob of spit spat on the back of his neck from inches away up in the tree stand with nothing behind them. We've had people breathed on from behind, nothing behind them. We've had people screamed at from right behind them, nothing behind them. So, there you go. There's been a lot of creepy, weird things that have happened up close and personal to people with nothing there in sight. Kind of alarming. Odd stories from the past. Dear Steve, been an avid listener for about 2 years now. Please do not use my name. I'm a former Marine and now have a job where this subject may cause problems. I have also changed the names of those involved to protect them from internet trolls as well. Okay, man, gotcha. I've been extremely interested in this subject since I was 12 years old. I'm now 55, due to an event that occurred involving my sister's boyfriend, later husband, who I will call Bob, and his friends, which were all young men, 19 to 22 years old, from our neighborhood in South Florida. This group was all very outdoorsy hunters, dirt bike riders, home car mechanics, etc. Normal young men, as far as I'm concerned, with that description. One evening in 1978, I cannot remember the exact day, Bob got a frantic call from one of his friends about 10 p.m. asking for him and some friends to come to where he was working. Bob said he sounded completely freaked out. Bob's friend was working as a night security guard at a construction site out west on the edge of the Everglades. After they returned, I got to hear what had happened. According to Bob's friend, he was sitting inside a small camper on the construction site when he heard some rustling noises around the dumpsters. He went outside to see what the problem was with a flashlight and a .22 long rifle pistol. As he approached the dumpsters, the sound stopped. He shined his flashlight around and caught the eye reflection of something next to the dumpster about 3 feet off the ground. He did not say how far away he was from the dumpsters, but I gathered it was not very close up. He yelled at it and kicked dirt toward it, and the eyes moved and vanished. However, there was no noise that whatever it was had left. He began shining the flashlight around the area and caught the eye reflection again, but now they're at least 7 to 8 feet off the ground. He freaked out and ran back to the camper and began telephoning for help. I don't know why he did not call the police, nor at 12 years old did I think to ask. I guess he was afraid of being laughed at. Nothing was found when Bob and his friends arrived, but they found his friend inside the camper scared to death. Bob's friend quit the job after that. I personally have not seen any of the forest people, but have had some unusual encounters in North Florida a few years later. I found moved from South Florida, North Miami area, to a small town about an hour west of Jacksonville, Florida, North Florida in 1980. Very rural, mostly dirt roads, etc. By 1982, both my older brother and sister were grown and gone. That left me alone with my mother, who worked in Jacksonville. I was home alone most of the time since age 15. My brother and I, before he left the Army, spent a lot of time clearing the property we bought and roaming the woods on foot and camping. Later I did the same with high school friends. I got pretty comfortable in the woods in those years, as there was literally nothing else to do besides going to school. There was a trail that led through the woods from our property area to the main road, which led to the only convenience store for miles. By road, the store was around 5 miles away. However, the woods trail kept the distance almost in half. This trail also cut across a creek running through the woods, and the surrounding area was almost a jungle. This point will be important later. I remember twice, while I was heading from home to the store, unusual things happened. As you know, the woods are very alive during the summer. Insect and bird noises are constant. Biting insects follow you like a cloud. During these two instances, I came across a stink that was just awful. It wasn't the stink of a dead animal. I know that smell well, having come across plenty of dead animals along the side of the road. However, during these instances, the woods went dead silent, like cone of silence quiet. No birds, no crickets, even the biting insects weren't around. It also gave me a creepy feeling that I could feel going up my spine. In both instances, I picked up my work my walking pace to get out of there, but I did not start running. I felt that running was wrong, like running would invite something bad. After about 100 yards or so, the smell faded and the woods were back to normal. The last instance, when I was 15 years old during an overnight camping trip with 2 high school friends next to the creek I spoke of earlier, after finding a good camping spot, one friend and I decided to walk to the convenience store for snacks and drinks, while another friend remained behind at the campsite. It was dark by the time we were heading back, and as we got about a quarter mile away, we could hear him screaming for us to cut it out, that it wasn't funny anymore. We yelled back asking, "What's going on?" He then screamed back that something was down there with him circling the campsite. We began running toward him, but we did not find anything around the campsite. However, we decided not to spend the night, packed up, and headed back to my house. As the woods were very thick near the stream, my friend said he couldn't see anything, but said it was large based on the noise it made and that he could hear the thump of footsteps. I've never had another odd encounter since. With as much time as I have spent in the woods while in the service and hunting throughout the years, I've not seen or experienced anything like those times. I guess the only major difference between the time is that I've never really gone into the woods unarmed since. I've never really spoken about these events with anyone before, including with the ones who were with me or told me. It all sort of got shoved under a rug. I really appreciate what you're doing with your channel. It is much needed in this world. And for all the non-believers out there, if you've not really ventured into nature outside the well-established path, you have no reference to just how vast that world truly is. You may think that civilization reaches everywhere, and that because of that, these beings cannot exist. In reality, that unknown world is incredibly larger and unknown than you know or realize. My suggestion is, try going out there sometime and find out for yourself. Steve, thanks again, sincerely am. Okay, man. Thank you for sending that in. Another donation of time of life, which is valuable, right? Very valuable. All right, here's one more, I think. This one's kind of long. All right, this is titled Sansavilla Panther and Bigfoot. Hello, sir. I want to tell a story about me and my teens, but first I want to tell you I love hearing your stories and the way you tell them. You never make fun of people, and that's what makes me want to tell you my story. Okay, man. Let her rip. You're in the safe place. We lived about 20 miles back in the woods between Jessup and Brunswick. Go a place called Aiken. This was back in 1965 through 1969. It was wild back then. 4 or 5 houses, 4 were old log cabins. We didn't have an inside bathroom, just an outhouse and a pitcher pump. Out back, we would fill a tub of water, then bring it in and put it on the wood heater, and that's how we bathed. We were really poor growing up, but I look back and those were the good old days. I miss them a lot. All I did was wander the woods most days. One morning, real early, right out of the blue, Mama wanted me to walk with her down to a little pond down from the house. It was overgrown with bushes and trees, and I said, "Okay, Mama." She wanted to go fishing. She's never asked me before. She'd been sick for a while. I don't know if she wanted to talk to me or just spend some alone time with me. She passed away about a month later. That was really hard on me. Anyhow, as we turned off the road towards the pond, there was a dirt pile to our left. I looked down and said, "My God, what dog tracks it would take an 8-inch circle to get it all in." I could see where it had been digging about that time. My mama grabbed my arm and said, "Don't move." It was about 75 feet to the edge of the water. There stood a black panther, hissing at us. My hair stood up and all we had was 2 cane poles. She said, "Don't turn your back on him or run." This cat was at least 8 feet long, without the tail, and his legs as big as mine. I already made my mind up that I couldn't hit that cat. that I could hit that cat 100 times before he got to me. He stood there and hissed 3 times, then turned and ran across the edge of the pond, then stopped, looked back, then jumped a dead tree and was gone. Uncle Daniel lived across the branch down the road in an old log cabin. The next day I went to his house and told him what happened, and he said he'd seen him years earlier, but he didn't want to scare us. I told him I was going to catch him, so he gave me one of his old bear traps. I took it back to the pond with my 410. I nailed it to a large pine tree covered with wisteria vines. I wired a small catfish I had caught in the pond. Every day after school, I'd go to the pond and check on the 3rd day. As I looked around the edge of the bushes, I could see the vines were chewed off about 2 feet off the ground. I was really scared to look any further, but I did. The trap was shut, but had a 1.5-inch claw, some black hair, and a little meat on it. No shit. After that, I took up the trap. We kept it in a glass jar for years, and I lost it. I showed it to a game warden once, and he says, "There's no black panthers in Georgia." I was thinking, you're full of crap. I almost got ate by one. I couldn't believe he was a game warden and didn't know that they would yell behind the house at night all the time. They would sound like a teenage girl getting murdered. I would shoot in that direction to shut them up. It would quiet them for a couple of hours, and then they would start again. After listening to your stories, I always wondered why I would find a little wooden cross tied together with vines, and 3 or 4 rocks stacked on top of each other on the banister of the back porch. Makes me wonder what else was out there sometimes. Oh, we're missing some punctuation, okay, guys? What else was out there? Sometimes I would be at the house all night by myself and could hear things hitting the house. I was on 17 at the time, and it scared me because I thought it might be that panther. About a year later, I was coming home with Daddy, and right there at the pond, it ran across the road with 2 smaller cats, and all solid black. 3 months later, one morning, Daddy asked me to get my bike, go to Daniel's, and get us a coffee. I didn't want to ride through that branch that early because it was really foggy, but I went. I go to Daniel's, I beat on the door a couple times, he didn't answer, so I give the door a good shove. It was old lighter boards and it opens halfway. He had no lights, but I could see his feet in the bed on the far side of the wall. As I was going in, I was calling his name. When I got about halfway, I could see that his face and shoulder was gone. I set the grass on fire when I left. I got back at the house. I was screaming at Daddy and told him Uncle Daniel was dead. When we got back to his house, I stayed outside. Oh, okay, hold on a minute. Sorry, I'm going back because that was confusing. I could see his face and shoulders gone. I set the grass on fire. Okay, I think when he said that, he meant he started running. When I left, I got back at the house. I was screaming at Daddy. I told him Uncle Daniel was dead. When he got back to his house, I stayed outside. I got to looking outside and found that panther tracks outside and below a window. It only had a screen on it and it was ripped outward. That's how he got out. I'm thinking how close I came again to that cat. This is the honest truth. It seems like yesterday, and that was 1969. Now, fast forward to 1982. I was bull hunting on San Sevilla Management Area. I parked my truck about 100 yards down the logging road. Then I took my 8-foot tree stand and bow and went on down the road. It made a 90-degree turn on the left. There was some new planted pines. I didn't have much time before dark, so I put it inward about 6 feet to watch a branch back towards my truck. After a little, I looked to my left, almost behind me. There comes 2 does. After 2 years of bow hunting, I'm going to finally get one. There's no punctuation. Well, I turned back around and waited for them. They made the curve, then they spotted me and froze. I could see their eyelashes. The only sound I could hear was this large power lines humming. Well, the standoff lasted about 10 minutes. They kept looking ahead, not at me. They would not move. So I thought, well, you're fixing to mess up. But I was running out of daylight. So I draw back, and when I did, they bolted about 20 feet back. So I turned my arrow to the left. So I turned my arrow to the left, that one ran back the way they come, then I swung to the right, then that one took off the same way. I just sitting there knowing it wasn't going to work, so I lit up a cigarette. But that time I heard down by my truck in the branch the most pissed off growl I ever heard. Nothing in the woods so deep and mad as hell. There was about 5 or 6 dead logs breaking. Mad as hell, there was about 5 or 6 logs breaking. I'm talking 5 to 8 inch logs breaking. I'm thinking it's down by my truck. After a minute or two, I could hear it growling as it crossed the road going away from me. The only reason I took that ladder stand was to hold it in front of me to fight with it. That was not natural. I guess when you get that scared, it burns in your brain. You can call me Wayne. Thanks for letting me vent. I have more, but we'll stop for now again. Thank you. Whew, there's a mouthful. Your uncle got shredded by a frickin' cat and in his house? And face and shit. Well, that sounds pretty frickin' bizarre. And it shouldn't be too hard for somebody to find the record of that death either, I'd imagine, right? If you're into it. That's a bizarre handful of stories shared there, man. Big cats. I've never had a toe left in a trap yet myself when I've used them in the past. Years back, we had a wolf, big wolf, who had his foot in a trap one time and only had was one toe in it and held him. But, yeah, big cats. Cats are opportunists big time, man. They are so stealthy. There's a couple ripping around my place right now. People are seeing them. Somebody's got a video of them yesterday, actually. All right, what's this one? This is titled In Africa. There we go. I think we had some crazy stuff shared from Africa from our friend in the military. It's titled In Africa. The following is what I remember of someone telling me about when they were a child. So it's a child's perception and memory, retold as an adult, colored by my memory. Back in the 90s, I went with friends to visit a friend of theirs who lived a short distance outside of Ottawa, Canada. Quiet but not shy. Some hours into the visit, he told of some of his childhood. Born in Canada, he moved with his missionary parents to live in Kenya. From a young boy of 5 years in the late 60s through the 70s, he lived in Kenya, first in a small village for a number of years. He ended up staying with the locals there while his parents traveled around the region. With them away so often for extended durations, bringing the white man's world to locals, he ended up running around barefoot and naked with the village children, doing as they did, with him leaving the white man's world behind as he assimilated into their life. Much of that was learning by exploring their village and its surrounding areas. Ranging was appropriate by local standards for their age. He told of a long but shallow valley that started a short ways out of town. Descending from the flat land that the village sat on, this valley was fairly barren. The kids would sometimes go by it during their exploring, but avoid entering due to the warnings about the wild man that lived there. I forget what its name translated to in English, but he saw it a number of times. When going past the valley, the kids would take a look for it. While it was often seen, more often it was not, but enough that the kids got reminded to not go down into the valley. He went in once on a dare, down and around a couple of bends, but didn't see or hear anything before he lost his nerve and quickly retreated to find the other children had already run off. As I write this, I have a vague recollection of him going in another time and getting chased off by some aggressive yelling. Despite his being white-skinned, if tanned, and everyone else being black, he had no recollection of being regarded differently from the others by the wild men, nor of it seeming to remember any of them. He gave its description as roughly like an adult Bigfoot in North America is depicted, only as though it was squashed shorter, around 5 feet tall. As he grew, it stayed the same size. He always thought it was an adult. He described a lot of muscle, short black hair, somewhat longer on its head, but not long enough by human standards. A black beard encroaching on the mouth and eyes, no neck, rounded head, not a cone head. Longer arms, but definitely man-like, not ape-like. Always standing like a man, not like an ape standing or squatting upright. He made no mention of skin color on the face or elsewhere. When asked what he thought it was, he was adamant it was man-like, not an ape. But he wasn't sure if it was a hot, climate-sized Bigfoot or something else. When they saw it, it would be in the open and would stand unusually still, facing them and staring back at them. Note that it would have heard the children from some distance off. He says its attitude wasn't angry, but more of one of a, "You'd better not." Sometimes it would yell and throw small stones. They came close but always missed, quickly chasing them away. They never stayed to tease. It meant business. He said he only ever saw that one male, but that some of the other kids reported seeing him with his mate and a child, which would result in a lot of yelling as the kids were chased away by the male. He didn't report any of the amused by children attitude that turns up in some of the Bigfoot encounters. He only ever saw it down in the valley, not up near the rim, nor out in the flat land, but there were tales of it very rarely being seen near the village at night. At rare times from that village at night, a short howl or howls could be heard in the direction of the valley, which had the adults shook up through the next day. The adults were very clear they should stay out of the valley, and that it should be left alone and not bothered, else it might decide to bother them. He heard no reports of it ever hurting anyone, but the adults felt that was always a real risk. They later moved to the coast, and he didn't see any there, but did the times he returned as an older teen to visit the village. He did not like talking about it. He didn't appear scared, but became apprehensive, as though telling about it was wrong or going to cause trouble. Regards, Michael. Holy shit. I think that's the first direct description of something in Africa being reported here, I think. Because remember before our military, remember chasing the guerrillas, the bad guys through the jungle in Africa, and a couple of them came running to the pursuers for safety because something basically annihilated and made that entire group disappear in the swamp at nighttime. I remember that story. I'm not relaying it too smooth right here though, am I? Africa. What a big chunk of land over there. I'll bet you there's way, way more stories originating from that continent, without a doubt. And they're just not here yet. Let's see, one more story of my life. It's almost like fishing, right? One more cast. All right, this is titled, What I Know and Edgar. Hey Steve, that sheriff from Edgar was pretty good. It confirmed what old-timers like me already are aware of. Added some precision to what we have suspected. At least the old-timers have been paying attention. I'm not a scientist, just an old dude that spent a lot of time in the forest. Spent some young years hunting every day and never ever thought of a Bigfoot creature. As a young man trying to feed the people in my household and do my share. You already know my story, although you don't know all of it. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. You wonder about abilities that have been lost to humans. I have wondered that many times myself. This may not mean anything to anyone, and I'm positive there are people who have had the same type life experience as me. Okay, here it goes. Number one, when I real young, probably around 6 years old, I had pneumonia. Ended up in a hospital emergency room. They put me in a tub full of ice to bring my temperature down. Remember, this was the early 60s. Next thing I knew, I was looking down at the people that were trying to save me. Out-of-body experience. I must have died or been real close to it. Or maybe just curious. You never know. Maybe I just didn't know you weren't supposed to be able to do that. Okay, number two. When they were trying to teach us to read in school, I already knew how without trying. I knew the meaning of words I never heard before and would find out later I was right. I just knew how to read. I don't know why. There's probably some things I'm forgetting here, but I will keep going. Number three, when I was around 10, I seen my first UFO long before lasers or drones. Number 4, when my brother was killed in a car crash, I felt something in the darkness and called out to it, and the light disc appeared in the pitch black and left when I asked it to. I was 23. I'm only telling you this because of the things you think have been bred out of us. Number 5, I told you of my experiences with anomalies I've dealt with in the forest. So, when all this is said and done, I can only say I think maybe I have a sixth sense. I think many of us do. You probably have it. That's why you've seen what you saw. I'm sure of it. When you read from Edgar, I was amazed when the scientists said there were many more of the beast now than before, something I was already aware of. I think I sent you an email asking you what you thought of the idea, as in, do you feel like it's picking up? Or am I imagining it? Because it is so easy to communicate in these times we're living through. You know, I myself have never laid eyes on those things and don't want to. But my gut tells me I've seen them out of the corner of my eye. Like the last time I was mowing the graveyard and got so dizzy and sick I almost fell off my lawnmower. My son found the footprint down the road from there. I believe he has an intuition also, even more than me. That's why he found the print. That's what I believe. Also, he confides in me. I'm going to close this up now as fast as I can. Remember, I try to keep my thoughts in the real world because I'm conditioned that way. When I was young, there wasn't a deer in 50 miles of here. Now there's a shitload. People don't hunt to stay alive like the old timers, plus conservation laws. If they're here now, the beast, then they have to eat, and there's plenty of whitetail for them to feed on. From what I've been hearing on your channel, they've been feeding on deer meat, and there's an abundance of food in the wild. There's a population explosion. That's why I mentioned depleting their food source in one of my emails. I know they're here. I suspected for some time because I could smell them, even in places where I would not think them to be. It puts me in high alert. Not up around houses or anything, but on the trails people use to see some of the local attractions. When my kid found the footprint, it was physical proof. They're here with no doubt. Also, they keep closing the campground I like. I smelled them there too. Honestly, I think the G-men are onto them, and they probably hunting them, or at least trying to drive them away. The campground has been closed for a while, and there's always some lame excuse posted on the gate. Now I see where there is another campground that's closed unexpectedly, a real popular one, where there's money to be made. There have been numerous sightings around that campground here in Ohio. We've got a lot of big hills, tight valleys, and thick tangles in this state. Most people don't think of Ohio as a place where they can exist, but like Charlie Daniels said, there's some things in this world you just can't explain. Okay, don't think I'm crazy. Sure, if you take a notion too. Thanks for the Edgar share. Very, very awesome, especially about the light sensitivity. We kind of figured that too, but the distance was flat out mind-boggling. These photos are the print my kid found in the mud in February with toe prints, 14 by 6. Who walks around the woods barefoot in February at night? P.S. I found an educational YouTube posting of the Ohio DNR teaching kids how to spell Bigfoot. Why would they do that? What happened to Smokey the Bear? Just plain weird. All right, gotcha. Got the photos? Appreciate the share, man. And I will get those photos up. I'm on a roll. I actually remembered to put the photos in the last two videos, I think, didn't I? Oh, man. All right. That was a big boom. All right, let me do one more here. So that was fairly recent. Okay, here we go. Last one, I'm going in. Then your name they gave you. This ought to be interesting. Hi Steve, I've written to you, but you haven't read my email of my interactions, but eventually you will hopefully get to it. Yesterday, you read an email from the Owl Man concerning adoptions and the special names the people give us. I asked my adopted sister what name they call you, and she spelled out Hunter leader. You are highly regarded by other people because of what you are sharing with the world. My name is Cabin Lender. Probably because I share my home with everyone that needs a place to stay, and many of the forest people bring their kids and friends to show them what a human home is like. I've often had their children exploring and running through my home. The kids love to look in cupboards. Hopefully you will get to my other email soon because it contains a lot more pieces to the puzzle. Thank you for dedicating so much of your time here, sharing true knowledge with all of us. Cindy Johnson, Northwest Georgia. Okay, Cindy. I should probably find your emails because you know as well as I do what you stated in this one's going to have a lot of people going, yeah, right. Sasquatch running around in your house looking up in cupboards, right? And for any of you who might have missed the last couple of videos, email shares, the Alman is sharing how he got his name from the beings that he's been in contact with and how they do refer to other humans with names they give them. So I guess that brought up the curiosity of, for some, up to what they may possibly call me. Different kind of an email, isn't it? All right, there we go. I got a good handful of people's voices shared that are sitting politely in line waiting to be shared. Now I have to get my butt in gear and carry on with my tasks at hand. Got one day here to get caught up, and then it is off to the wilds again. We'll be back shortly.